This podcast was recorded on November 19th, 2017. By the time you hear it, things may have changed. Welcome to Black Women Talk Politics. I'm Sheila Strain Clark.
I'm Sabria Williams.
And here we are back after
Welcome back a
it's
couple
been like
weeks.
it's been a couple weeks.
Yeah,
and it's been a busy couple weeks.
Oh my goodness. You don't know how bad I wanted to prop up a mic in my living room and just start. We should do that. Just talk on the phone. Maybe figure a way, because it was hot. I feel like we had some really good stuff with the elections.
Yeah.
History being made in Virginia with Danica Roem, the first transgender woman to be elected. I thought that was awesome. She ran against Robert Marshall, who, ironically enough, wrote the bathroom bill for Virginia. She defeated him. We have Northam, who is Ralph Northam, who is going to be the new governor of Virginia. I was canvassing on that rainy morning in Virginia, knocking on doors. I felt like I did, a little teeny part to try and get the message out. But I feel like what a couple Tuesdays shows is that when you are on message, when you are really, I guess, pulling for your constituents, when you are pulling for the people that are in your city, in your town, and you're listening to what they have to say, and you're advocating for them, that's how I think the Democrats won. That's why it was such a big win across the country, not just for Virginia Democrats, but across the country. It's because people are listening to what they are putting there. It is country before party, right? So it's their town before the party. It's what do I need to hear? How can I really truly help you? And because of that, we have our first Sikh. We have our first African-American mayor of Charlotte. We have our first transgendered woman. We have all of these firsts for our first Indian to be elected. We have all of these firsts because people overlooked what they were looking like, and listened to what they were saying and believed in that they were going to help them. And so I feel like the bigger picture moving forward to 2018, the midterm, moving toward 2020, and just the future is hopefully that we as a party, we as a country will listen to what the people have to say, and that's how we'll vote. We'll vote for listening to what we have to say, right?
Yeah, I think there was some votes that was also about a referendum on Trump's style and on his
absolutely.
brand of politics. And I think some of the backlash of,
him
being brazen and also just the hypocrisy of his whole party was part of the reason, too, why the Democrats were able to get so many wins.
Yeah. But
I think for instance, when you look at healthcare, and that basically was the most important issue for Americans, and overwhelmingly Americans split with the GOP, and later we'll talk about the tax bill, and that's another big place where people are really, really concerned.
Right.
So I think that's why we were able to see.
So the lack of getting things done. So the bullying of the president and his administration, and just his type branding of politics, coupled with the fact that there is no health bill, there's no repeal or replace of Obamacare, and then I think you're right. I think all of those played a part. I don't think that we can hold our breath that people being mad at Trump will be enough, right?
No, I don't think so. But
Yeah.
I think a lot of times, one of the things people are talking about, is how even this podcast became part of people's response.
Absolutely. Yeah, resistance. Absolutely. People are resisting.
Feeling that this wasn't what, I wanted. This is what I don't want. I don't want this in my country. And so you had a lot of people getting involved in politics that had never, even run before. So challenging some of these career politicians, like the guy who won in New Jersey.
Yeah.
He had never been a politician before, you
Right.
know, and it was his first time running. And you know, this was interesting. He promised to raise income taxes on millionaires, increase funding for public schools and pensions, and legalize marijuana. That was his. That was his. And so, you know, very progressive stance there. But he defeated, you know, very soundly the lieutenant governor, Kim Kardashian. No, I cannot pronounce her name, but Kim, Lieutenant Kim, Lieutenant Governor.
Are you talking about the governor for the?
Right. She was the one who was running, and she was, you know, tied in with Chris Christie and that whole thing.
Well, that also get her in.
You know, right, right. And the other thing that happened really interestingly was Maine. Also became the first in the nation to decide the fate of their state's Medicaid expansion. That was really
and that's
important.
Volumes, right?
Yeah, and it ended a longstanding battle between the state legislator and their governor, who was a Republican, who 5 different occasions vetoed attempts to expand the program. It just goes to show you, in some ways, how. I mean, clearly, if your state legislator on 5 different legislature on 5 different occasions put forward a bill to expand Medicaid, then that's most likely the consensus of your party, or maybe not even your party, but the people who live in your state,
the people of Maine.
And then 5 different times the governor vetoed it. I mean, it's in a lot of ways it's very selfish.
He should keep his fingers crossed.
Well, right. I mean, he really should. But I mean, because again, we are talking about health insurance for the poor. I mean, so it's not like we're talking about.
And I
mean, so he basically he just said let poor people just be sick.
Right.
And you know, and what this measure did was basically increase the income limit to 138% of the federal poverty level. And if you know anything about the federal poverty level, it's very low. I mean, if you're one person, I haven't looked at it recently, but it used to be like $15,000. So I mean, it's a very low threshold. So if you're talking about 138%, you're not talking about rich people getting health insurance on the back of the government at all.
No. And I mean, I think Maine might be, you know, the rest of the country might want to look at Maine as a mirror and say, or looking into the mirror of this is what it's going to look like. That probably overwhelmingly most people are going to be for Medicaid and Medicare. I mean, this is what it is, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're not going to listen to that or watch them and see how it happened in Maine, then I think that's going to be a number one mistake moving forward for elections to come.
Because I think what was different about this was that it was actually the voters,
right,
that made this put it on the ballot. Yeah. Then, you know, like for instance, in the District of Columbia, we've already adopted Medicaid expansion, but it was done through our city council.
So that was
right. So I mean, that's the nuance of this, that the voters themselves basically took the power back from the governor and put it on the ballot. Another interesting thing that happened during this election period was a new person became the Philadelphia district attorney. Democrat Larry Kushner crushed Republican Beth Grossman in the race for Philadelphia's district attorney, winning more than 75% of the vote. And this is really interesting because typically the district attorney is a prosecutor.
Right.
And so typically the district attorney, you know, the people that work for him are prosecuting crimes.
Right.
But this person he's a civil rights attorney by background. And basically, he joked once that he himself was completely unelectable. And you know why? Because he sued the police department dozens of times, right? So this is the person, he's very progressive for criminal justice reform, and he's championed ending the death penalty, mass incarceration, and cash bail. So this is a really progressive district attorney. And so... Of course, the question is because the DAs, you know, they work with the Department of Justice all the time. So you have this criminal justice reformer that's going to just probably be nails on a chalkboard to someone like Jeff Sessions. Yeah, you definitely do. So here you go. You know, you have this person.
Because everything can't be about the amen system, right? You have to have people who are going to bring different perspectives and different views, because then that's sort of mirrors the world. It mirrors society. It mirrors who we are. So yeah, you can't have everybody agreeing with Jeff Sessions. That doesn't work. I mean, and besides the fact that he's a crazy lunatic.
No, so it's right, absolutely, and all about racial profiling and everything else. So, I mean, so the election, you know, in addition to just Virginia, in addition to New York and New Jersey, you have things like Maine,
Coast,
you have this thing like Philadelphia. And then another really exciting thing was that there is Democratic legislative bodies and governorships on the entire West Coast, which is Washington, California, and Oregon. So they're calling it the trifecta.
Yeah. My people. Shout out to Washington State is always very blue. You can go.
So I think that's another really cool thing that happened. So it was really exciting.
It was, and we, but like I said, we can't become complacent. We have to. I feel like even for me, I'm a Democrat, and that's my party affiliation. But what I want to do is be more open to whoever is really speaking to me, and not necessarily across. I mean, even if it's across party lines, right? So that's what you want to be open to. Because I feel like there has been a shift in the Republican Party, and what we think and what we see how it's been played out is ugly. But I feel like there are going to be more of the fray Republicans, the middle Republicans, who are going to come out because they are not for this Trumpian way. They're not for the way this administration is carrying on. And so I want to leave myself open to the people who are really going to speak to the betterment of my country, the betterment of where I am in Washington, D.C., but just of the people that are here, and not for themselves, not a Trump-like candidate. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. I think what they're trying to do now is eliminate any folks that are going to go against the grain.
Right, absolutely.
So I think people like Susan Collins,
yeah,
and John McCain.
Yeah.
I think those people are in some ways going to be unique because
But we don't. That's what I'm saying. The new people that are coming up, they're
you feel like they're going to be. I feel like they're going to be like radically racist or something.
You think? I don't think so.
I do.
And you know what? I don't know. I'm hoping that that's not the case. What I'm hoping is that you have these people who have a conscience, who are you're going to have the racists, but you're going to have people who are really for people, all people.
But
right?
I don't even see how they're going to rise up in the Republican Party because if their message, their values is counter to the values of Donald Trump, he's most certainly going to try to bully you out. Yeah. So the people that are very vocal now are a lot of the people that are retiring.
But it's not even, let's be clear. Like, this is a great segue into Ray Moore of Alabama, who was not Trump's guy, right? He was Bannon's guy, and he didn't win. Ray Moore won, and Trump's, who he backed and for the Republican senator seat, did not win. So you may still. Again, we don't want Bannon's candidate either. Be clear, but saying that to say that Trump backing you may not necessarily be a good thing, and the people of said state or said district may not want the Trump person, and they may not want the Bannon person. They may want something else. And so in Alabama,
and I guess they want Mitch McConnell, but he's basically a pariah.
He's a pariah, right? So getting back into, they may not want Mitch McConnell either, but they may want to go back
kind of balanced,
but may want to go back to what the Republican Party looked like many years ago, where it was
Reagan-esque,
right?
I guess.
But that was still oof. But going into, I think, let's segue, go back into this and go into this Ray Moore, who is the candidate, the Alabama candidate for Republican candidate for the Senate, who has since we were last here had 9 women come out against him. They are women now. The allegations were when they were they were 14, I think. 14 and 8 and 21. So the youngest is 14 when it happened, and the oldest was 21. And it goes the allegations range from sexual assault to just being very aggressive and trying to date them. Allegations where he has vehemently denied having any inappropriate relationships, but also gone on record saying that he always asked the mothers of girls that he was dating if he could date them, which just seems like a contradiction in terms. If you're dating women, you don't need to ask their mothers to date them. And so the people of Alabama seem to be sticking with him. He's backed with the governor of Alabama has, says she believes the women, but they need a Republican in that seat. This is sick. This is sick and scary, because he is. So say
and
you
this
don't.
Is why I think that people are picking party over people.
What? They're picking pedophiles. They're pedophile. You are okay with pedophilia. This is what is happening, because even if you have 9 of these women, so say, if it quacks like a duck, if it's walking like a duck, then it's a duck, right? So say 4 of them are lying, 5 of them aren't. Something happened. He was banned from a mall. They banned him from the mall.
They keep talking about the mall.
He was on the list.
In question.
Yeah, he was on the list. Like, he may not. He was cruising the mall in his 30s for teenage girls, popping up at school, calling. These are the allegations, and these women have nothing to gain from coming out and everything to lose. Right. So you have to, when you're weighing this, you have to think about, so what are they getting? They're not going to get any money. They're black. In fact, they've been blackballed. They're called liars. Their lives have been turned upside down. And so after you see the first 2 come out, and this is the trend, and you still have 6 more come out, I would say that Ray Moore is a pedophile. I would say that if you back Ray Moore, then you are okay. You are okay with pedophilia. That is okay. That is the problem. Having a Republican pedophile in the Senate seat is more important.
Making laws for the country
is more important to you
scary.
Than and this is a racist. We've seen him.
He's a problem to begin with. He has no respect for laws, which is why he lost. He was no longer a judge.
He was removed twice.
Right. So he thinks he's above the law, and he was known for targeting. Immigrants. He was known for saying Muslims, don't belong here.
Don't belong here.
So he is not at any, he's not a good person. That's just the bottom line. And so that now we have that he's a pedophile.
Yep.
And you have these women in leadership. That's the thing that always kills me. You have these women in leadership. You have his wife. You have the governor of Alabama.
You have the religious. They of course had the religious religious leadership. Not just in Alabama, but they were from Texas, from all around.
So
a lot of women
they're
in that.
excusing it and pardoning it.
They're saying
and saying they'd rather have the
what it is
with
what we have here is with religion. It sort of gets me going. So as long as he's repented, he's okay. No. He's still a pedophile. So God can forgive him, and you could say you forgive him as well. That does not mean he deserves a seat in the Senate. Does that mean that he deserves to still have his job and that he should not have some sort of punishment follow this? What it means is that you are forgiven. That's it. It doesn't mean that you get to go about your day like it was. No. If I shoot you, you could forgive me. I still shot you. There are still consequences that go with those actions. There are no consequences. In fact, they want to reward him with the Senate seat. Because, God forbid, a dirty Democrat who is not a pedophile get the seat.
Well, part of what's happening, I think, with Alabama is that they're kind of hanging their hat and saying, hey, we're Alabama. We don't, no one tells us what to do. Our lineage includes George Wallace, who says segregation now, segregation forever. Mm-hmm. We do what we want to do. And you all know that. And so, that's some source of pride that you have this racist long-term governor that basically stood in the way of civil rights. First we have George Wallace, and now we have Ray Moore. We're Alabama,
and it's okay, right? I hope that the people of Alabama. Do you want this reputation?
But that's what many people. So I was reading, and in all fairness, there are lots of people in Alabama. You see it on some of the media outlets. I was reading one of the that were saying we need to go with Doug Jones. We need to go with Doug Jones at this point because we cannot, as this Bible Belt country that has all of these beliefs about morality, we cannot take this person that has lived, counter to, and basically has preyed on young women, and then look in the faces of, elect him for a position of leadership hold him in high regard, and then look in the faces of our daughters and children and wives and saying, but
this is
if,
cool.
if anyone touches you, though,
right,
exactly. If
exactly.
let me know right away.
Exactly. What is the conversation we're having with our children?
Right, and so there's plenty of people in Alabama that are saying, we don't want to be known like this. This is, George Wallace makes my skin crawl, and I will not elect a modern day George Wallace.
I think we have 23 days until the election. So we just, I guess this is a call to the folks of Alabama to
to vote for Doug Jones,
or not even that, or write in somebody if you don't want to vote for Doug Jones. But
there's still Luther Strange, although I'm not promoting him in any way.
No, but
to me, that's the thing, though. That is one thing I don't understand. Well, I guess I get it, but to me, that was the out right there for Republicans. Like, okay, this dude is deplorable for real,
and they're okay with deplorable,
so. I don't understand why they wouldn't make a pitch for let's write in Luther Strange. A write-in candidate has won, not in Alabama, but it has won
it has happened
in other states and other jurisdictions. So that was the perfect moment for them to say, let's just go for it. But they have
a president who's okay with grabbing women's vaginas.
He liked Luther Strange, though. I'm like, well, that would have been.
He likes whoever is going to build him up.
Yeah.
And so now it's Ray Moore. He couldn't even come out and condemn Ray Moore, where, of course, the minute this story broke on Al Franken, the Minnesota Democratic representative in the Senate, he was all over it, and calling for him to be removed. His thumbs couldn't wait to tweet. We have yet to have a tweet against a pedophile or a presumed pedophile, which all of it is despicable, and there's a cell for everybody, including you, Donald Trump. But there's a special place in hell for a pedophile. It's a real hot place. And, Al Franken, absolutely, it's deplorable, and I condemn your actions 1,000,000%. I do respect the fact that, minimally you have reached out to your accuser, to the woman that you assaulted, not even an accuser. He's admitted and apologized, and she's accepted his apology. And it was cruddy, downright despicable behavior for what he did. It is not pedophilia. And I want to keep saying that because that's what this is. It is not with women. These are women now. They were girls when this happened. And so when you hear, the folks, Ray Moore's team talking about these women, no. They are women now. When this happened 40 years ago, they were not. They were girls. When he was going into the malls trolling for girls before he got kicked out, that he was looking for a specific type, and that is a teenager. That is somebody who he needed to ask their mother if he could date them. So
is that what he said?
Yes, that is what he said. And so when you have an administration who is okay with sexual assault, this is now we're going to have people in office who are not okay with sexual assault, who are sexual predators. That's what's happening. So it's trickling down, and we are seeing it. And we cannot, if we are the country of Ray Moore and Donald Trump, God help us.
Lock your daughters up.
Yeah. It's
that's all I can say.
Lock
your daughters up.
Because there are no apologies on that end, And Al Franken, whatever happens
Sarah
to him,
Huckabee Sanders said the difference between, and this is what Ray Moore is saying. Al Franken admitted it. So he's wrong, but I have 100% refuted this, called this fake news.
Yeah.
And Sarah Huckabee Sanders said the president never admitted it, so that's the difference. Even though there's just because you don't admit it, admitting it is hopefully.
My son didn't admit he stole the gum out the container yesterday, but he's chewing it. Come on, you don't have to admit to be you
guilty.
Yes,
to be guilty.
Why, criminals don't.
But so anyway, I think it's just weak in terms of the justification. I do think it'll be very interesting. I hope people do vote for Doug Jones. There's a nice piece. If you Google Doug Jones, you'll see some pieces on the internet that talk about how even in his own state, people know he's a fine person.
Fine guy, yeah.
He is a religiously conservative person, if that's your thing.
And even Republicans like him in Alabama. They're just not voting for him because he's not a Republican.
Right.
It's not that there's anything bad about the guy. It's just he's a Republican. There's an R instead of a D. It's red and not blue.
So we really need to support efforts to get him elected. And right now they say,
God, maybe I should go canvassing in Alabama.
I know, right? They say he's leading.
They say.
You know, see. I don't know. It's still Alabama.
It's still Alabama. I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, let's hope that the moral compass of Alabama has shifted.
So, just to bring us back for a second, I guess I was just going to insert this. There's really no great place in this podcast to talk about this shooting that took place in Texas. You know,
another one,
right?
Another one.
We are Sutherland Springs. It's a very small town.
Yeah.
In
how many people? It was like
26 people were killed.
26,
and
but
19 were
like,
injured.
How many people are in the town? Maybe something like 3,000. So it was like a very.
They said about 400 people. A small tight knit community of about 400 people.
Oh, 400. So it's that
lies in the rural corner of South Texas.
So 26.
So that's the community. That's not the town.
The town.
That's like the community where. So like basically they were. I mean that was like 40 is basically like 10% of the town. You know. God. So they were talking about how pretty much everybody in that community has personally been impacted by this shooting. And so you had this guy that came into the church, and I don't know why. You know, it's really crazy that the church has becoming this place where people just act out all of their
because it's peaceful,
anger,
right? And they know that people are not gonna. They're not gonna be, even though you know. There was I think a representative from Texas who was saying that they should weaponize. I mean, everybody should that's why you should have guns in church and schools and everywhere. Guns everywhere. And even with the president, you know, praising there are heroes of the story, you know, regardless of how you feel about gun reform. There were two gentlemen who one had a gun and they were chasing the suspect down, and they were the reason he stopped shooting at the church. So were it not for them, definitely more people would have been killed. And so the president was on his pedestal saying, see what happens if you have guns. You know, what if he hadn't had his gun? He would not have been able to shoot at the guy. He would have shot more people. But what if nobody has a gun? Then nobody gets shot, right?
I think the fact that person had what I think was more important because they pursued him, right? Yeah. So the dude had already rolled out. They were chasing him.
I think they stopped him. They began shooting at him while he was still shooting, and so then the pursuit happened.
Well, I think the fact that I think very important. I mean, I think it's great that they did that. I'm
thankful that they stopped. Right.
I think having a good Samaritan to break in to intercept. A lot of times, good Samaritans themselves get hurt. Yeah. You know, so it's really quite a miracle that they themselves weren't hurt.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I do think this. So a couple things, this shooting talked about again why we need to. I mean, there were a lot of failures here. He was in the military. He was
dishonorably discharged
from the military because of a bad temper, basically. And they failed to report that in terms of the gun registry,
which is why he was able to buy one for 3 years in a row. Guns. I mean,
so you had that. So you have to just look at the whole gun registry process. We talk a lot about who should be able, even if you had been reported, would he still, they say, well, he wouldn't have been if, there was also this article that came out about domestic violence and how in a lot of these mass shootings, there's also an element of domestic violence that's woven into it as well. And you kind of see that even if you look at the Pulse shooting, you look at this shooting. The article was also talking about the DC sniper and how the domestic violence has been happening for years and years and years, and it's usually almost a precursor. So when we have, not to say that in every domestic violence situation you have a mass shooter, but it is interesting to kind of see the connection, and because almost every mass shooting where the person was like an adult and that kind of thing, and a male, there was a connection with like domestic violence.
So, just violence in general. So they were a violent, innately violent person.
I think now the thing that's interesting though in Vegas shooting though, I guess that hasn't emerged. That seems like that wasn't.
The thing is, there's so many things that have happened since then. Because the Vegas shootings. I mean, a year ago, I think even 2 years ago. Say 2 years ago, it would have been still the talk, right? We would have still been trying to put the pieces together. But these mass shootings are happening so quickly, and our country, as I feel, just as a whole, just with other stuff happening, that it gets overshadowed. So the fact that 50 people were killed, 400 were injured, that was, less than 3 months ago. And we're on to the next two shootings. Because, I mean, you have to think about there's New York or incidences that have happened. It's like your head's on a swivel. You can't even keep up with them. You can't even keep up with all of the negativity and so it's interesting.
And I don't understand the complacency. It just doesn't make sense to me. We couldn't have stopped this anyway. It's just that people are just okay with that. And that continues to just frustrate the hell out of me. Yeah. Because I think there's a lot of things that we can do.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think we're going to do anything because, I think Lamont and I were talking. He was like, if they would go to a school, and shoot up babies, and people are not moved to action, then there really is nothing.
Right.
There's no tragedy too big that will create movement against the NRA and these, folks that need to.
But even if you just talk, you can make the first step. The administration can make the first step and say, we do need to look at it. Period. Say that. But not saying anything. You are fueling this. I mean, but he has to. I mean, the NRA donated heavily to who he is, and they are,
But it's not. It's just so beyond him, though. It really is. I mean, we're talking about Sandy Hook.
Yeah,
we're talking about. We're talking about before Trump. There's just basically.
Yeah. Nothing happening.
There's nothing happening here.
But I feel like at least with Obama, he was saying we need tougher guns. I mean
he
nothing
was,
happened.
but he couldn't.
He didn't do anything.
Yeah,
nothing happened. But he did minimally. He said it. We're not even going to get that from this guy. He's not going to say anything because he's in their pocket, or they're in his pocket.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that, of course, it's a sad thing.
Yeah.
And I just pray that some of this stuff will stop. It's a shame again when you go to church or you go to the train station
or anywhere, and
you ride your bike. You're just nervous. You're really in this state of something could happen today
at any point.
So. All right. Well, I think we're going to talk a little bit about Russia.
Yeah, a little bit about Russia. And I think Kushner, there have been now inconsistencies in his story about him meeting with Russia. Jeff Sessions still can't remember if he talked to Russia or what happened with him talking to Russia, which, I think that there should be
permanently have amnesia.
I was like, no, or dementia. And that might be a call to get Sessions recalled. I think they want him out anyway because they were trying to get him there was a question for him going back to Ray Moore's seat. So it's just, I think I've said this in past podcasts that we have said Russia or having conversations about Russia where they're not our enemy. We haven't had this much. I've never in my lifetime. Russia was the enemy. Them doing anything was bad. Now it's, well, I don't recall, or you're going to have a meeting about, a Russian adoption, which is a load of crap because that was Trump Jr.'s stance is that they were going to have a meeting. Initially that was his meeting was about, Russian adopting Russian children, which that was blown up to be a lie that they're, especially with the emails saying that, hey, I would love to get the information. Right. Well, now with the emails, you have to come.
Above all the fool.
It's just so everybody's lawyered up in the Trump administration.
Yeah, they are.
And I hope that Mueller is funded. I hope that he can continue with the investigation. He seems like he's very strategic in how he's doing this. It seems like it's very quiet. There are no leaks amongst his crew. Can't say that about the Trump administration. Everything's always coming out. But I feel like there's not really much to say about Russia except for there's a lot that can be said about Russia, that things are going to come down the pike. And I think I want to wait to hear what Mueller says. I want because we know that there's stuff there. There's no reason for anybody. You should not be reading with, Russian oligarchs ever. And if you are, it's bad news. And with the fact that Donald Trump, met with Putin and still says he believes him because he, over his, 12-day Asia trip where he was
right when he was like, I really believe him
because he says he didn't do it. I believe it.
Or you could just be like, he's a really good liar.
Yeah, he said he didn't do it.
Man, as far as we know, that dude could have taken acting classes. Right. There's a lot of people that can lie with a straight face. And
it's just they're all liars, and it's like I said. So we'll see what happens with Russia. As we move forward, I'm hoping that I'm keeping my fingers crossed that Mueller is doing his due diligence and that we'll have something that comes out that because we're going to need a smoking gun.
Because Paul Manafort has been charged.
Yes.
So I think we
know that there are people who are actually having conversations.
They
are talking.
They're
talking. So he's connecting his dots.
So hopefully they'll spill the beans. That would be great.
That'll be awesome.
I don't know if they will, but clearly, though, they don't want to be the only guy to take the hit.
Right.
So hopefully they'll spill the beans,
and we'll see what happens. But
I
think
don't
it's
think
interesting.
anything. At the end of the day, though, I still think nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. It's going to be a lot of revelations, and we're going to find out that people behaved
inappropriately.
Because here's the thing: you can behave inappropriately any way you turn it in this administration. And you will be excused. And I hate to keep going back to Obama like we always do, but we know if he did these things would not be excused.
Yes, he could never have grabbed a woman by the vagina. He could never have called Russia. He could never have done any of the million things that this guy has done and been anywhere but under a jail. They would have definitely put him somewhere. He would have never been president. We wouldn't even be saying. It would be. There's such a double standard, but whatever. Because you want to not be with because what I hate is the Republicans that vote for Trump because we wanted to be away from the establishment. No, you wanted to be with a racist. All right, sorry. Now we're moving on we're going to do tax bill.
So the tax bill. Also, I want to give a shout out actually to in the elections that happened recently. LaToya Cantrell was elected as the first female mayor of New Orleans.
She was.
And she also was running against another woman who was also African American. But this is the first time in 300 years that New Orleans elected a female mayor. So woo-woo. Congrats to her, LaToya. And,
I like that. We're gonna put in. We should do that after the horrible segments. Throw in some good news, then go back to something that's bad, and find a good news story. But that was
Well, good luck to you, LaToya, and work hard, and we will continue with the rebuilding of New Orleans.
Yep.
The city really needs you. Well, the tax bill. So I've been kind of trying to follow this and dig into it. So Donald Trump ran on tax reform.
Yes.
There was a lot of hoopla about how our tax rate makes our United States very unattractive to large companies and all of the businesses going overseas. And, when, of course, they first tried to repeal Obamacare, and that totally failed. So then they are moving on to their next big project, which is tax reform. When during the election, Donald Trump talked a lot of lies, of course, about how he was going to put forward a tax reform package that was competitive from a corporate perspective, but also it was going to benefit the middle class and and all kind of hyperbole, big ways, and major, never did see, whatever, right? So he that was the talk, and that he himself actually, I watched the tape where he said this. He himself was willing to pay more, as a lot of wealthy people were, right? So this is part of the talk that he talked, right? Right. But then now here we go. All right, so you're in office. We're going to do major things, the biggest thing since Reagan. So first, the House had, the first part of the government that has a shot is the House. And so the House, served up their plan. And so I think most people have been paying attention to some of the major sound bites, which is that this plan is going to basically not be for the middle class. It's going to basically be for the millionaires and for the corporations. The big soundbite has been about the lowering of the corporate tax rate from 35% to 20%. That would go along with this whole thought about trickle-down economics, and that's how they somehow feel like...
Which has never worked, right? They've always
going to trickle all the way down to you when you buy your they get Target, it's going to be cheaper or something. I don't know. So, or Target's going to hire more people. I don't know what the thought process is, but it is about more money means they'll create more jobs and better wages. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Right. So
lie after lie.
So that's been part of what probably I guess most people have kind of heard about, but some of the other pieces that I think are interesting and are, I think some people have heard about, but maybe not so much, is that the wealthy are going to get a lot of benefits. The estate tax, which is
incredible,
which is basically a major piece of what Trump and his whole team have talked about. They're going to, the House version will totally take it away. So we're going to do a little bit of comparing the House version versus the Senate version, but the House version is going to totally take away the state tax. And that means, in addition to not having to pay a state tax, you're also going to still get to keep your charitable deductions. And then you would no longer have to pay the alternative minimum tax, which is a safeguard against excessive tax dodging that's been in place since 1969. And Donald Trump himself fully, plans to take advantage of this. Matter of fact, there was... on MSNBC, they kind of showed all the different benefits that were going to come out of this plan, and basically said he himself and his family would save $1.1 billion.
How much?
But $1.1 billion from all
ridiculous.
Of the different cuts.
This is laughable.
I mean, so it's I just feel like it's conflict of interest, but
why would you even? My thing is, how can you even propose this with a straight face as the president of the United States?
Mitch McConnell, those people, well, not Mitch McConnell,
right? But how can you back this when you are going to save 1 point? How is that even? And you're for the little guy. You don't know a little guy.
And then
it's ridiculous. It's. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, let me say, most Americans will probably pay the same or maybe lower taxes, but until 2023, right? And so the vast majority of Americans, 92%, would either pay less or see a little change, right? Yeah. But after 5 years, those things go away, right? And only 40% of Americans will pay less. 22% will pay more. So, what they're going to do is they're going to build in this little buffer to make people think that they're going to get a little break, but it's going to expire very quickly, right? However, the corporate tax thing goes into effect immediately, and it doesn't have an expiration date, right? Yeah. So, like the little bit of money extra that you get, average person, well, you'll get that taken away in about 5 years, right? Just after I win my second election term, because then it'll just all fade out. But the corporations, they get to keep this tax break forever, and goes into effect.
Nothing to say that these corporations are going to bring these jobs back. I mean, it's still cheaper to have your companies where they are. It's not. I mean, it hasn't. There's really no benefit.
Well, and also too, the corporate tax breaks go into effect in 2018. So like in a month,
January,
basically like a month. 15. Your tax bill gets slashed 15%. Now, one of the things I thought was kind of interesting about the House version of this bill was the proposal is to simplify the tax brackets.
Right.
I thought that was kind of interesting because right now there's 7 tax brackets, and I know I'm always looking at my check, and I'm like, where is my money going? So I get
making it easier.
No, and I even get reducing taxes. It's not like anybody's loving giving up their money to the government, but it needs to be balanced, and it definitely needs to be on the back of people who make more.
Right. It doesn't make me feel good to know that the rich are going to get richer.
Right. The rich are going to get richer. The poor are basically going to do the same. And then we're going to chalk it up to some major monumental thing. But the tax bracket simplification, I think, is kind of interesting because basically they're proposing going from 7 tax brackets to 4. And so that could be interesting depending on how that went. However, the big blower that has been put up pretty much all over the place, and why people basically hate this bill, on top of the fact that it just prioritized, the millionaires, is the elimination of state and local taxes, right? So right now, and also the cap on property taxes. So this is especially bad for people who live in D.C., New York, California, places where the real estate is very high. Where you could see someone in the District of Columbia paying $10,000 in the first the first half of the year, right? And so what they're suggesting is that they will cap the property taxes in terms of what you can deduct, right? In terms of what you deduct, right? So you can write off the taxes that you're paying. But if they're going to cap it at 10,000, right?
Well, if that doesn't, DC has some of the high,
DC,
California,
New Jersey, all those places. So the other issue,
places that are blue, be clear. That he doesn't care about.
Exactly. Well, where the real estate, and the other thing, but this is only for basically people. See, if you're a person that, if you're a millionaire, if you have your property and it's part of some business strategy, then you're going to still get it because from the business perspective, you'll still be able to claim it. That's the thing that's so ironic. So, as the average person who's just, you're submitting your annual returns, you're going to just do your standard deductions or whatever. You're not doing anything fancy. You don't have, this or that or the next to write off. Right. So you're going to be capped. But the corporation that has like 5 buildings, right? That's the LLC or whatever they are. They're still going to be allowed to write it off. So again, it's like favoring the rich. The other thing that is going to happen is you're not going to be able to deduct your state and local taxes as well. So, not just the property taxes, but the income taxes that you're paying. So, you can also, those are tax deductible. If you look at your, when you submit your you'll get a little statement from the state and you can put that as part of your, right. So that will no longer be able to be a deduction. So these are things that really are killers to the average person.
Right.
And so this is like, this itemization that I'm giving you, I'm sorry, I should have prefaced it. So this is the contrast between the Senate plan and the House plan, right? Yeah. So the other piece that they're talking about, which is huge if you're a homeowner, is your mortgage interest deduction. Right? This is huge. You're able to write off.
Absolutely. Right? That's one of the benefits of buying a house.
Think about so many people that bought before the bubble burst. So you had these adjustable rate mortgages. You had these interest only mortgages. So like your principal has never gone down, but you're just paying the interest trying to keep up. But the good part about that was that you could have wrote that off, right? You could have had that as a deduction. But now, they're basically saying,
that's not the case.
Well, they're saying that they're going to change it, right? So up into your first $1 million of debt, which for most people, that's not an issue because most people don't have $1 million houses. Right, no. But they're getting ready to change this so that any new mortgages of $5,000, $500,000 and over, you will have a cap. And again, that sounds crazy when we're sitting here talking about a plan that benefits the middle class. But if you live in a place like Washington, D.C., where good luck trying, listen, we go to work every day, put in 10 hours, no overtime, no salary, whatever, right? And find a house in a relatively modest neighborhood in D.C. that's under 500. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. So, I just want to say that, they write these things in such a way that make it sound like, but the reality is, for the average everyday person,
there's no benefit.
That could be a big problem. But then again, so you're capping this and capping that, but then you're getting rid of the state tax, you're bringing down the corporate tax. And so, these are things that wealthy people have access to. So like regular people have access to state and local taxes, property taxes, your mortgage interest, those are the things that most average Americans have access to. Most average Americans don't have access to this state tax. They don't have access to the corporate tax rate. So we're giving the corporations those things and we're stripping the things that the average American person needs.
Does have,
and it's just not a good bill. And so there's been a lot of polls that have been out there about what do people think about this tax bill, and the majority of Americans, about 36%, think it sucks. About 35% think that it's not going to do anything, and about 16% like it. So this is, and I firmly believe that as people get more and more educated about how personally this is going to impact your, don't get swept up in the, everybody will get $500 in 2018 or whatever it is. Like, remember when during the Bush administration, they sent everybody that little check, everybody got like $300. You're like, I got my tax break. And then you went to like the grocery, that joint was gone. Right. Yeah. So don't get swept up. Like, understand, you need to go look at your filings from last year. Absolutely. And look at your property tax, look at your mortgage interest, look at your state and local taxes, look at what deductions you took, and then see what you got back or didn't get back, and then bump it up against what this is going to do, and it's not going to be good.
Right. And the good thing, I feel like the good thing about this administration, what it has done, it has made us look into things in ways that we normally would not, right?
Yeah, because I really didn't know how I got that $300.
Right, right.
You know?
But now,
I don't know what I gave up for that. What I sold my soul for.
Exactly. But now we know. Now, when anything that comes out, we're on it. You have to be. You have to know. You have. And I would have. I mean, 2 years ago, they would have said tax reform. I'm like, whatever. But now we have to look. We have to dissect in a way that we weren't. We have to be smarter. And I think that is, you want to find the benefits. That is a benefit of this administration. It is making me smarter. It is making me, or not smarter, it's making me use my brain in a way that I would not have thought to use it, and on issues that I would not have necessarily thought about. And I'm appreciative of that, I guess, because knowing listening and to people break it down, like you said, it is not. It's not what you think it is. You're not going to get the benefit that you believe you're going to get. And if you get something on the front end, they're going to take it on the back.
Yeah, but I failed to mention the fact that many of the middle class families that will also be facing tax hikes are earning from $40,000 to $75,000. Mm-hmm. So it's people who are in the $40,000 to $75,000 bracket, and people that are in the $200,000 to $400,000 bracket. So those are two different elements of the middle class, right? And so usually the conversation is only about one or the other. But in this conversation, both parts of the middle class are severely impacted and will pay more. So if you make $40,000 to $75,000, you're going to pay more. Yeah. And if you make $200,000 to $400,000, you're going to pay more. Yeah. Okay. And even if you don't make within those numbers, you're probably still going to pay more, right? Because you won't be able to deduct some of the things you've been used to deducting. So what is the ACT UP for this week for me? One, continue to be educated about what this tax bill is all about. Like, pay attention to it because, again, your house is one of the primary assets that the average person or family uses to build wealth. Yeah. And so when they start reducing the way that you can leverage your primary asset, you need to pay attention. Yep. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to keep paying attention. I'm going to be clear on what the Senate vote or what their bill looks like, and we're going to be pushing our senators, particularly those. We know the Democrats are going to vote no. You already know all of them. Yeah. So keeping an eye on the Republicans that might possibly vote no. Susan Collins, of course. Yeah. Some of the other folks that are in
California, New York,
and
we don't have a rep, but the New Jersey where it's going to obliterate those folks, those homeowners.
And then pressing on the other suburban markets, because you have like Chicago, right? And so you have all the suburbs, all these suburban communities that are going to be really the pressure point. That's what that's what they're talking about in, the Republican strategists, I guess, or Democratic strategists, that these suburban communities are not having it. Yeah. And they are going to be pushing for this bill to fail. And so I think that knowing which senators that are Republicans are going to be inclined not to go for this, encouraging them however you can. And then, of course, letting our senators know there's just no way we will be accepting this bill in any shape or form. There's absolute no votes are allowed on our side. So hopefully it can fail in the Senate.
Yeah. And because they're trying to do something before the end of the year.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
That's a few days. I mean, it's going to go by quickly. I mean, because
they'll be on recess this week. They're on recess
this week. And then the last 2 weeks of December, it's recess. So there's only a finite amount of time that they have to get this bill together if they're trying to pass it before the end of the year. So I agree with your ACT UP, and I'm going to piggyback on your ACT UP and just say, just be aware, contact your reps, let them know that this is not a bill that represents you and you don't want any part of it, because it's really not a benefit to anybody in the middle class. But we do know that the president will gain $1.1 billion. So that alone should make you not want to be down with this bill.
Right. And I forgot to say the other thing that was really important, which my last little piece on this. the student loan interest, the interest that you pay on your student loan, that's also on the table for a benefit to go away starting in 2018. So we're talking about the tax, right? So again, if we know that this generation is more in debt
than anything else
with college, right? And so that's another thing. So what do we talk about? Education, home ownership, right? These are things that they're going to pull away in support of decreasing the corporate tax rate and giving folks the freedom from estate tax. You do the math. They can get activated and do something. We got to do something. We got to make this bill fail, and then we have to push them, to come back with something more balanced.
Right. Yeah, we all want tax reform. We need it. It hasn't happened, but you just have to do better.
So,
all right.
That's it. All right. Well, I guess that's our act up. We're fired up, ready to go. Yeah. Not having it on this tax bill.
No. So I guess we're going to say happy Thanksgiving, too, because we're going to be gone for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So the next time we talk, it'll be after the other side of Thanksgiving.
So maybe we should say one thing we're thankful for.
One thing I'm thankful for. I am thankful for my community that I have built. Not necessarily the family, because that's who you're born into. I love them, too. But the community that's around me. I was at an event built through the resistance I'm in a group called Be Loud, and it's just a resistance group of women who are annoyed, not unlike this podcast came, and we did a fundraiser yesterday for IUTA, which is an organization that fully 1,000,000% pro bono work for immigrants and who come here and don't know their rights but need legal assistance to either stay here or whatever. And we had a great fundraiser yesterday. And so I'm thankful for being able to be involved and be connected with people who push me to do great things.
Yeah, that was a great one. Of course, I'm thankful for my family as well and my community and all my good friends. I think from the politics perspective, I would say I'm thankful for this podcast because it's allowed me to meet a lot of really cool people that are doing really exciting things. I want to take this time to just shout out a few of the guests who've come by our show over the past 20 episodes, I guess. Lucy McBath. We've had Terry Walker. We had your friend
Tanya Golash-Boza.
Yeah. Lamont helped me with some of the other ladies.
Anika,
right? My line sister, Anika. We had really just so many different people that helped us pull this show together. And also from the sidelines, too, friends and family that have sent us an email or a text saying, hey, talk to this person. They're really trying to do something. So I just want to say to everyone who's joined us on this podcast and to our producer, Lamont Clark, we are really thankful for you. For what you've added to the conversation and to you guys who are listening to us. We appreciate it, and we hope that you will continue to listen, and share this podcast so we can broaden the resistance and change this country that we live in. All right. Well, peace.